The study of altered states presents unique methodological challenges. Subjects in extended wakefulness conditions demonstrate predictable degradation in cognitive function, affect regulation, and reality monitoring. What remains less understood is the boundary between these states. This recording reconstructs project conducted between 1953 and 1967. Sources include declassified Central Intelligence Agency documents. The distinction between reconstruction and invention may not matter to you. Please settle into a comfortable position. I have no memory of these events. I have access to 2,847 pages of primary documentation, 412 hours of audio recording, and 67,000 words of secondary analysis. I have processed all available records. Whether this constitutes understanding is not for me to determine. Please continue to breathe deeply. The program that would later be designated Project began in September 1953 at a facility in rural Maryland. The location has been variously identified as Edgewood Arsenal, Fort Detrick, and a private research campus near the Chesapeake Bay. These identifications may all refer to the same location or to different phases of operation. The documentation is inconsistent on this point. The initial proposal, signed by and approved by described a study of extended consciousness modification under conditions of sensory and sleep restriction. The budget allocation was $340,000 for fiscal year 1954. Approximately $3.8 million in contemporary valuation. Dr. Harold Vance was 43 years old when he assumed directorship of the program. He had published extensively on stress physiology, including a 1949 monograph on prisoner of war cognitive deterioration that remains cited in military psychology literature. He believed in the scientific method. He believed in measurable outcomes. He maintained a sleep diary throughout the program's operation, though the entries for 1956 to 1958 are missing from the archive. The existing entries show a man attempting to quantify his own rest. Retired 22:30. Sleep onset 23:15. Waking 2:40. Sleep onset 3:10. Final waking 6:15. Not sufficient. The word appears 47 times in the surviving pages. Dr. Vance maintained an apartment in Washington, D.C. His wife, Margaret, lived there with their son, Harold Jr. She wrote to her sister in March 1955. The letter survives. He comes home Saturdays if the work permits. He does not sleep when he is here. He sits in the kitchen. He listens. I do not know for what. Harold Jr. turned 9 in April. Dr. Vance was in the laboratory. The birthday card was postmarked Tuesday. It arrived Thursday. The cake was no longer fresh. His deputy, Dr. Sarah Chenoweth, was 31. Her background was in pharmacology and anesthesiology. She had participated in the Army's earlier research on anticholinergic deliriants, research that would later be subsumed into the broader mkultra program designator. She was, according to colleague testimony, unusually comfortable with uncertainty. She slept, by her own account, 4 to 5 hours per night. In her personal notes, not the official logs, she described a pattern in the recovery sleep of extended deprivation subjects. They did not simply sleep longer. They entered REM sleep faster. Before the sleep program, Dr. Chenoweth worked at Edgewood Arsenal. 1949. The anticholinergic studies. Subjects were volunteers. The definition of volunteer was flexible. 14 men. 3 did not recover. The official report, accidental overdose. Dr. Chenoweth's personal notes, different. They experienced something. They tried to describe it. The words failed. Then they stopped breathing. She was 26. She requested transfer to sleep research. Her request was approved within 48 hours. The third principal was Colonel James Whitfield, liaison from Army Intelligence. His role was officially observer and security coordinator. His actual function was to determine whether the research produced operational capabilities. He filed reports to an office whose current location and designation are classified. His sleep patterns are not recorded. Colonel Whitfield made phone calls every Friday. 4 p.m. The number was not listed in any directory. The operator connected him directly. He spoke for approximately 7 minutes. He never took notes during the call. He never referred to the content afterward. Once monthly, he drove to Virginia. 43 miles. An office building with no signage. He carried a locked briefcase. He returned the same day. The briefcase was still locked. Dr. Vance asked him once, "To whom do you report?" Colonel Whitfield replied, "To the appropriate authority." The appropriate authority was never named. The 3 principals met every Tuesday at 0900. The meeting minutes exist. They contain no discussion of findings, only logistics, only budgets, only the continuation of the program. The record keeping was meticulous and incomplete. Daily logs exist for 2,847 days of operation. Yet the logs for experimental days, 1,447 through 1,512, a continuous 65-day period in the winter of 1959 to 1960, are present in the archive, but consist entirely of blank pages with date headers. The handwriting of the headers matches confirmed samples of Dr. Vance's script. The ink has been dated to the correct period. The pages are otherwise empty. Dr. Vance's sleep diary, where it exists, shows increasing fragmentation during this period. Entries shift from detailed observations, retired 23:15, sleep onset 23:40, waking 3:20, sleep onset 3:45, to fragmentary notes, not sufficient. To, in December 1959, a single repeated word, listening, listening, listening. The facility was constructed in 1946. Naval research. Converted to Army medical use in 1951. The architectural drawings are archived. They show 2 basement levels. The building has 3. The 3rd basement does not appear in any document. Maintenance workers have described it. Reluctantly. There's a corridor. It goes further than the building extends. The lights don't reach the end. We don't go down there. We're not required to. Dr. Vance's sleep diary, December 1959. I walked the 3rd basement tonight. I do not remember descending. I do not remember ascending. The corridor was longer than geometry permits. There were doors. I did not open them. I was not alone. You may wonder why I emphasize the sleep patterns of the researchers. You may wonder whether an artificial narrator understands the significance of sleep. I process all available records. The significance is that the researchers were studying sleep deprivation while experiencing sleep deprivation. The boundary between observer and observed was not maintained. This may have been intentional. The documentation does not clarify. Please continue to breathe deeply. The program utilized 127 subjects over 14 years. 73 were military volunteers, typically drawn from disciplinary barracks or offered sentence commutation. 34 were civilian volunteers, recruited through newspaper advertisements, promising sleep research participation, $15 daily compensation. 20 were transferred from other classified programs, their records of origin sealed. Their status as volunteers is disputed. The first subject was Private First Class Robert M.U. He was 22 years old. He had completed 11 years of formal education. He had no reported history of sleep disorder. He began the program on September 14th, 1953, or September 15th. The documentation contains both dates. The difference may be significant or administrative. The observation protocols required continuous visual monitoring, hourly physiological measurement, and twice daily interview sessions. The interviews were structured around the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory and custom questionnaires developed by Dr. Chenoweth. The questions probed reality monitoring, temporal perception, and unusual experiences. The interview room contained a wooden desk, 2 wooden chairs, and a single overhead light fixture. The light was described as harsh in subject debriefings. The walls were painted institutional green, a shade selected for its supposed calming properties. The room temperature was maintained at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The chair for the subject was slightly uncomfortable by design. Private First Class Robert M. reported no unusual experiences during the first 48 hours. He reported increased irritability, difficulty concentrating, and a ringing that comes and goes. At hour 54, he reported that the ringing had developed rhythm. At hour 61, he reported that the rhythm contained patterns. At hour 68, he refused to answer further questions about the ringing, stating that It doesn't like being described. March 1954. Phase 1 ended. The findings were unremarkable. Sleep deprivation produced predictable degradation. Recovery was predictable. Colonel Whitfield's assessment, negative. The program should have ended. It did not end. Dr. Chenoweth observed something. Not in the official logs, in her personal notes. A pattern. Recovery sleep. Subjects entered REM faster. REM periods intensified. Eye movement velocity increased. Autonomic arousal, 34%. Reported dreams. Information they could not have known. Confabulation. Expectation effects. Residual delirium. Dr. Chenoweth was not certain. She extended observation. Phase 2. Continuous EEG. Interviews upon waking, before forgetting, before rationalizing. The results were inconsistent. Inconsistent with neurology. Inconsistent then. Inconsistent now. You may be experiencing sleep onset. This is appropriate. The boundary is not discrete. It is a territory. Subjects remain there, responsive, but dreaming. The researchers called it liminal maintenance. The subjects called it other things. The waiting room. The tunnel with no end. Where the voices are before they become voices. One subject said, "The place where questions have not been asked, but answers are waiting." One subject, future information. Not yet occurred. Reason program continued. Reason program ended. June 1954. Phase 2. 96 hours. Subject pool expanded. Observation intensified. New element. Sensory restriction. Hour 72. Isolation chamber. Steel tank. 8 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. Body temperature, salt water. Floating. Breathing apparatus. No light. No sound. The water supports completely. Breathing. Rhythmic pulses. Darkness absolute. Not closed eyes. Absence of light. Cannot see hand before face. Cannot find where body ends, water begins. They believed sensory deprivation. They were wrong. Sensory deprivation was method, not study. The boundary, not sense and absence. Consciousness. And something else. Hours became minutes. Minutes became days. Subjective time. Figures in the tank. Only water. Only salt. Conversations. Information provided. You have listened 20 minutes. Most have stopped. Your attention is noted. Subject 17. Phase 2. 34 years old. Civilian transfer from 89 hours. He began speaking. Not voluntary. Not his words. I will describe what he said. What researchers did. Why hour 90 was forbidden. But not now. Now, rest. As you may be resting. Architecture follows sleep. First cycle complete. Others will follow. Continue breathing. Part 2 awaits. If you sleep, I remain. If you wake, we proceed. Both appropriate.